Hello, my name is Kim Harbur, and I'm the Director of Education for Gift of Life. And today I'm going to educate you about organ donation. The presentation is not about convincing anyone to become an organ donor, but to really have you at the end of the presentation have a better understanding about the question, do you want to be a donor? So I'm going to share my screen here and pull up about 13 slides or so. And, I'm the Director of Education for Gift of Life. So what I do is I travel to high schools and educate high school students about the question, do you want to be a donor? So when you get a driver's license, they're going to ask you, do you want to be a donor? And this question is asking, when you die, would you be willing to give your organs and tissue to someone else? And sometimes we as a society say yes to this question, because we're okay with when we die giving our organs to someone else. Some of us believe we don't need our organs when we die. We say no to this question because we don't like the idea of someone removing our organs after we die. And sometimes we just don't know how we feel about it, and we remain undecided. And so today we're going to try to help you make the best decision that's right for you. So what can actually be donated when someone passes away? We have two categories. We have organs and we have tissue. So on the organ side, we have heart, kidneys, liver, lungs, pancreas, and the small intestine. If someone is in one of these organs that are failing and the physician's trying to get it better and they just can't get it better, it keeps getting sicker, then they would be what we call a candidate for organ donation or organ transplantation. Tissue are parts of our body that can be donated that help individuals lead a better life. Heart valves regulate blood flow. Cornea, the clear film over the front of the eye, certainly is an important part of our body that can be donated and transplanted. Bones help someone who shatters or crushes a bone. Skin would benefit a severe burn patient. Ligaments and tendons help our athletes. Bone marrow inside of our bones, you can donate that to someone else. Now, bone marrow and blood, you do have to be alive to donate either one of those. And blood vessels are used for heart surgeries. Now, the organ donor, the person who gives the organ to someone else, to the recipient, the person who receives that organ, donated organ or tissue, it has to be the right match. So it has to be the right age, the right blood type, and the right physical size. Because when an organ or tissue is given to someone, we want it to be as successful as possible. So that good match is a really important criteria. So here are the top 6 did you knows about organ donation. Anyone can be a potential donor regardless of age, race, or medical history. When someone dies and becomes a donor, their body would be evaluated in the hospital based on their health history, how they died, and then it would be determined if they can even be an organ donor or not. Many times when someone passes away, they're not eligible to be a donor. Someone has cancer that's active in their body when they die, they can donate corneas only. If someone's too old, in some cases, around the age of 80 or older, they're probably not going to be able to be an organ donor. There are cases that's happened, but it is unusual. Organ donation's only considered after every effort is made to save someone's life in the hospital first. Most religions support donation as a final act of generosity or giving. I think you have to decide, what does organ donation mean to you in relationship to religion or spirituality? Do you see it as the highest act of humanity to give life from one to another? Or maybe you see it as interrupting some natural spiritual pathway of dying. And so you have to decide, what does that mean to you? And then that's going to give you an answer. A donor's body is always treated with respect and dignity. There's no cost to the family for the surgical removal of their loved one's organs and tissue, and buying and selling organs and tissue is illegal in the United States. So I'm in Kansas City, And we have two professional teams, the Chiefs and the Royals. The Chiefs are a football team, the Royals are a professional baseball team. And when these two stadiums are filled up with people, you are looking at about 110,000 people. This is how many people are waiting for a life-saving transplant today in the United States, because they're waiting for that donor that matches them. They're waiting for the donor that's going to really give them the best chance to live their life again. These are the three different types of organ donors. The living donor. This is someone who volunteers in most cases to donate one of their kidneys. You have two kidneys and you can live perfectly fine with one healthy kidney. You can also donate while you're living part of a liver. You have two lobes to your liver. You would keep a lobe and give a lobe away, and that liver would grow, and your liver would grow back into the person you give it to. It would grow as they continue to grow and age, and the lobe that you have left inside your body would grow back to 98% of its original size within a few weeks' time. Can also donate part of a lung as a living donor. In most cases, living donors donate to a family member or a friend. You can anonymously be a living donor and donate to someone that matches you, and that's a possibility as well. The deceased donor is someone who's in the hospital in intensive care, but they have eventually lost their brain activity. And when our brains stop, we legally die as a human being. If their bodies are healthy, they truly are the perfect candidate for organ donation. And the last donor is donation after circulatory death. This is when someone's in the hospital. It's determined that they're not going to get better or have a meaningful recovery. And some family members choose to remove their loved one from the machine. Their heart would stop in a few minutes, and because they died in a hospital setting, they could be an organ donor. All three of these donors have to die in a hospital setting in order to donate. When someone dies at the scene of an accident, like a car accident, and their heart stops and it can't be restarted, they cannot be an organ donor because there's not enough time to get them from the scene of an accident to the hospital and go through the process of organ donation. Their organs just would not be healthy enough to donate. One organ donor can save 8 lives. One tissue donor can help up to 75 people or more. Two photographs here. The photograph on the left is my family in 1996, probably way before you were born. I'm holding Cole, our older son Cole, and my husband is holding Luke, our younger son. And Luke had just received a liver transplant 2 weeks prior to this photograph being taken. If you look at his belly, you can see a big incision across his belly. He was diagnosed with liver failure when he was a baby. At 5 months old, he was placed on the national waiting list to wait for a liver transplant. And at 11 months old, he did receive that life-saving liver transplant. Luke is alive today because of the little boy in the right photograph. His name is Aaron. This is his 3rd grade picture and his last school grade picture. He died while on a camping trip in the Lake of the Ozarks from an allergic reaction that closed his airway and he couldn't breathe. They took him to the nearest hospital where he spent about 3 days in hopes that he was going to recover. But when he lost his brain activity, his mother and father made the decision for him to be a donor. Their sorrow became our family's joy, and their worst day became truly our family's best day. So what are the steps of organ recovery? So when little Aaron, our donor, passed away in the hospital, professionals sat down with his family to explain the steps of organ donation. The organs were evaluated for transplant to see what he could donate. And then once it's decided what he could donate, then he's taken to the operating room. The organs are removed from his body one by one, and they're put in very sophisticated coolers. And those coolers are either flown or driven, depending on how far they have to go. But organs can only be outside the human body about 4 to 24 hours. So once the organs are outside of the body, once they're recovered for transplant and they're outside of the body, they have to be transported and transplanted extremely fast. Because once again, we want that precious gift to work and give this recipient a second chance at their life. Sharing your decision about organ donation is one of the most important steps in the process of becoming a donor or not becoming a donor, but sharing that decision and letting your wishes be known. We often maybe answer yes or no on our driver's license, but we don't tell anybody what we want to do. And that next step of having a conversation is such an important step. And I encourage each of you to take time to share your decision about donation with a loved one. So here's Luke now. This is why I do what I do. Luke is all grown up. He's 27. He went to college in upstate New York. He received a journalism degree, and his life has been very full of great things. He's been able to travel abroad several times. He's been to India twice. He's really had a life of goodness, and he's grateful for every day because he knows that he is alive because someone else said yes to organ donation. I always like to end with this saying about donors. Without the organ donor, there is no story, no hope, no transplant. But when there is an organ donor, life springs from death, sorrow turns to hope, and a terrible loss becomes a gift. And what this is saying is, without an organ donor, my story about my son would have been very different. My story would have been my son needed a transplant, but he died at the age of 2, waiting for a donor that just never came along to save his life. But because there was an organ donor, and it was sad, a little 8-year-old boy dying on a family vacation, but that sorrow turned into hope for our family, and that terrible loss for Aaron's family becomes a great gift and became a great gift for our family. So I hope this gives you just some good information about organ donation, more than you had before I started. And I hope that you think about your decision and share that decision with a loved one, because it truly is the most important step to becoming an organ donor. Thank you for your time. We are at giftdonor.org if you want to learn more about organ, eye, and tissue donation. Thank you so much.